See, let me explain something to y'all. White people don't all get along. I know this because I work with them. Some Jews think they better than Italians. Some Italians think they better than the Irish. Some Irish think they better than the Greeks. Some Greeks think they're better than the Anglo-Saxons. But when it comes to doing what? Making sure white folks control the economics of the planet, they stop fighting long enough to keep Africa, and then they go back to fighting after they take care of the business of the white race. Pakistanis don't always get along with the Indians. They got issues, but when it comes to the best interests of the Indian people, they work it out. Iraqis don't necessarily like the Kuwaitis. The Kuwaitis don't necessarily like the Iranians. But guess what? When it comes to the best interests of the Arab people, they stop the petty beef until they take care of the business of the race. Chinese don't necessarily like Japanese, and Japanese don't necessarily like Cambodians, and Cambodians don't necessarily get along with the Vietnamese. But when it comes to the best interests of Asian people, they stop the fighting long enough to take care of the business of the Asian race. There's only one race on the planet who can't stop fighting long enough to get their act together, and that's us, African people. The most honorable Marcus Garvey said we were cursed with petty differences. If black people don't have a reason to fight, we'll make one up. Skin color, language, education, light skin, dark skin, Muslim, Christian, curly hair, straight hair, Spanish, English. And the white power structure laughing at all of us. Because everybody needs to understand this, and this is my second point of Pan-Africanism. And Brother Garfield, keep me posted on the time. I'm gonna keep going to give me like a 10-minute, because I'll catch the African Holy Ghost real quick. The second point, and you better get this, because people always ask the question, why are we worrying about Africa? We got problems in New York City. While I'm worrying about Africa, I got problems in the Dominican Republic. What am I worrying about Africa for? I got problems in Venezuela. The black community in Colombia got problems. Panama blacks got big problems. We got Africans in Mexico, big problems. Why am I worrying about Africa for? 20,000 miles away. What good is that for me? You know why? Because as Africa goes, so goes all African people. I've been all over the world, brothers and sisters. And guess what I've learned? Wherever I go, European Jews are respected. Wherever I go, European Jews got power. You know why? Because Israel is respected and Israel got power. Wherever I go, Chinese are respected. Chinese are in an economic power position. Chinese are always upheld and treated with respect and reverence. You know why? Because China is powerful. Why do East Indians get respect around the world? Because India is powerful. And guess what? Wherever you go in the world, African people are disrespected and ignored, even in Africa. Let me ask you a question. Can you name a single black economy run by black people on the planet Earth? I'm gonna ask you one more time. Can you name a single country, Africa, Central or South America, anywhere in the Caribbean, where we are in control of our own economics? Anybody? There's not one. There's not one. There is no black economy on earth ran by black people. And there is no liberation for African people until we get control of our economics. Black people in America, we a $2 trillion economy. We're the richest group of Africans in the world in terms of income. The richest. But can I ask you a question? Do we own anything? Where is our infrastructure? Where are our institutions? We keep talking about Black Wall Street, Black Wall Street, but no city in America do I find African people owning their own hospital, their own bank, their own supermarket, and their own school. Those are the 4 essential institutions. Independent black hospital, independent black bank. You need a hospital to save the people, a bank to invest in the people, supermarket to feed the people, and a school to teach the people. Why we ain't got that? There's a Chinatown in damn near every major city. You got little Vietnam, little Cambodia, little Italy. Where's little Africa? You know why we ain't got it? Because something slavery did to the black man and woman. I don't care if your ancestors was enslaved in Cuba. I don't care if your ancestors was enslaved in Brazil, enslaved in North Philadelphia. Slavery stole from African people the desire. And I want you young people to hear me, because you are the generation that is supposed to fix this. Slavery stole from African people the natural, God-given desire to control your own destiny. Do you realize we're the only people not concerned about controlling our own community? We're the only people not concerned about controlling our own destiny. As soon as the Chinese show up on the shores of America, soon as an Arab shows up on the shores of America, soon as an East Indian shows up on the shores of America, they build in their own communities. They're looking for a piece of a city to call their own shops, their own businesses, their own import, export, and all we want to do is look good. Half y'all in here, soon as you get your student loan check, you in New York City shopping because you want to look good. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't care if you're from Belize or the Bronx. You want to look good. Looking good is more important than having power. African people, we in pursuit of money. White people in pursuit of power. Father Rothschild said, "What? Give me control over people's money. I care not who makes the laws." Give me control over people's money. I care not who makes the laws. We chasing money. Money don't make a difference. Look at all the black entertainers we got. Look at all the athletes and entertainers we got. All that money, and don't use none of it for the benefit of African people. They might give out some turkeys for Thanksgiving. Who the hell need another turkey? You worth $500 million, and the best you can do for the black community is some stale-ass turkeys. Some sneakers. Another playground dedication. That ain't what we need. We need institutions and industries, brothers and sisters. So number two, as Africa goes, so goes all African people. You will never be respected. I don't care where you move to in this world until Africa is respected. That's why Africa matters. You want to know why black folks get killed by the police? Research, black and white research, that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Africa is the cradle of civilization, that the black woman is the mother of all civilization, and the black man is the father of all civilization. There is no humanity without us. Every group on the planet comes from us. We're the only people who came from God. Everybody else came from us. Which is interesting, because when you get into the religious conversations, and as Pan-Africanists, we don't take no issue with religion. We believe in freedom of worship. I don't care if you're a Hebrew. I don't care if you're a Christian. I don't care if you're a Seventh-day Adventist, a Jehovah's Witness, a Muslim. It makes no difference to me. Your religion is only my concern to the extent that it interferes with your ability to struggle for African liberation. If your Christianity does not stop you from struggling for African liberation, I have no issue with your Christianity. If your Islam does not stop you from struggling for African liberation, I have no issue with your Islam. If you being a Jehovah's Witness or a Methodist or an Episcopalian doesn't stop you from struggling for African liberation, I have no issue with you. But on the flip side, if you say you cannot struggle for African liberation because your God doesn't allow you to see color, we have a problem. I can't struggle with you. If you tell me you can't work with other African people because they haven't been saved, or they haven't taken their shahada, or they haven't undergone a particular religious experience, if you say you have to be of my own belief in order for me to struggle with you, I have a problem, because now your religion just became the enemy of African liberation. And let us be real clear. No weapon has been greater. No weapon has been used more against African people at home, which is Africa, and abroad in the diaspora than religion. It has been used to make us inferior. It has been used to brainwash us against who our true enemies are. It has been used to make us adopt a politically ridiculous colorblind agenda. How can you afford to not see color when you've been victimized by your race your entire experience outside of the diaspora? Who benefits by African people not seeing color? Who benefits by you not putting African people first? Always ask yourself that question when somebody gives you any set of circumstances. Who benefits from this? When a European came into Africa, he had the Bible, we had all the resources. By the time he left, he controlled all the resources and we had the Bible. Napoleon Bonaparte, and I'm no fan of his, of course he lost in the Haitian Revolution to Toussaint L'Ouverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines. And Napoleon said, religion is what keeps the poor man from killing the rich one. I'm not against religion, but your religion must be an instrument of liberation or it is a waste of time. I was raised Muslim and Christian, so I know all about the church. I know all about the masjid. And if I'm going to be plainly honest with you, there's no religion on the face of the earth that serves African liberation. And you cannot be a Pan-Africanist if you still got that white Jesus hanging up in your house, in your dorm room, in your car, or in your Bible. Because before we can liberate ourselves politically, before we can liberate ourselves economically, before we can liberate ourselves socially, before we can liberate ourselves culturally, we have to liberate ourselves psychologically. I want you to hear me well, Puerto Rican Africans. I want you to hear me well, American Africans. I want you to hear me well, all my Latino Africans, my continental Africans, my American Africans. There is no liberation for our race that does not begin with psychological liberation until you change the way that you think about yourself, your people, and your future. Until you change the way that you think about who we are, and what we must become, you change nothing else about us. Reparations is a hot topic right now, ain't it? Everybody's talking about reparations this like it's some new thing. Reparations grew out of the Pan-Africanist movement. It was Pan-Africanism that gave birth to reparations, not YouTube or the YouTube opportunists. It was Pan-Africanists who gave birth to reparations. But guess what? The US government could give us $1 trillion. The French government could give us $1 trillion. The Italian government, the German government, the Belgian government, they could give us $1 trillion. But guess what? Without psychological liberation, I don't care how much money you get from the outside, until you change the dynamic in the inside, nothing else will change. That's why the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, who gave us the red, black, and green flag and the largest black movement in modern history, Mr. Garvey said, don't take the kinks out of your hair, black sister, take the kinks out of your mind. I'm gonna get to the weaves and perms later. Because we cannot expect little black girls to grow up with pride. We cannot expect little black girls to grow up with self-respect while adult black women imitate Caucasians. Now, some of you have naturally curly hair. No problem with that. Some of you have naturally straight hair. No problem with that. We got African brothers and sisters in New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, in the South Pacific. They're naturally blonde, and they have naturally blue eyes. Some of our Puerto Rican African brothers and sisters got green and blue, and our Cuban brothers and sisters and Dominican brothers and sisters got green and blue. I got nieces and nephews who got green and blue eyes. So that's not the issue. If that's your natural color, so be it. But for those of you who have the original ancient skin color and the original ancient hair color and the original ancient hair texture and the original ancient phenotype of our great-grand ancestors on the Nile Valley of Africa, why would you dare snuff that out? Why would you dare kill the greatness in your DNA? One of the greatest victories of white supremacy is that it made black people want to imitate their oppressor. And most of us now still want to imitate our oppressor. And every last one of you in here right now, I don't care if you speak English, Spanish, Portuguese. I don't care if you speak Wolof or Swahili. Every last one of you, after you graduate from Pace University, after you get your bachelor's and your master's and your doctorate, you are either going to be a benefit to African people or a detriment to African people. You will either be a plus for your people or you will be a minus. You will either be a freedom fighter for African people or you will be a part of the coonocracy. Some of you can't wait to join the coonocracy. Some of you go to sleep dreaming of being a. You can't wait for the white power structure to draft you and offer you a job to sell out your people. You got all kind of African people selling out their people around the world. But let me get back to what Pan-Africanism is. Point number one, and these are in no particular order. I will be authoring a book on the principles of Pan-Africanism because we need that. Number one, all African people are one family. All African people are one family. Whether you in Puerto Rico speaking Spanish, whether you are in Senegal speaking Wolof, whether you in South Africa speaking Zulu, whether you are in Kenya speaking Maasai, whether you are in Brazil, the largest African community outside of the continent is Brazil. They speak Portuguese. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you got the straight hair or the curly hair or the nappy hair. Whether you got the blue, black, purple, beautiful skin of our ancient grand ancestors, or whether you have light skin, whether you are Muslim or Christian, whether you pledge allegiance to this flag or that flag, we are one African people. We are one African family. We are one African race. Now here's the kicker for Pan-Africanists. We identify as being African before anything else. Nothing supersedes your Africanity. You're never a Christian who happens to be an African. You're an African who happens to be a Christian. You're never a Muslim who happens to be an African. You're an African who happens to be a Muslim. You're never a Puerto Rican who happens to have some African DNA. You're an African who happens to be a Puerto Rican. Why? Africa existed before Jesus existed. Africa existed before Muhammad existed. Africa existed before the Dominican Republic existed. Africa existed before any country you pledge your loyalty to, any religion you belong to, any language you speak. Africa is older than that. Your race is the only thing you belong to that God chose for you. Everything else you belong to, you chose or your parents chose. You Christian, you love your religion, nothing wrong with that. But you could leave the church tomorrow. You Muslim, you love your religion, nothing wrong with that. You could leave the mosque tomorrow. Your fraternities, your sororities, you can leave them tomorrow. Your professional affiliations, you can leave them tomorrow. Your nationality, you can denounce it tomorrow. Your language, you can change it tomorrow. What is the one thing you belong to, chosen by God, fixed at birth, that you have no control over, and that is your Africanity. And that's why we identify as African family first. I'm giving you this because too many people walking around call themselves Pan-Africanists who really are not. If you don't put the race first, you are not a Pan-Africanist. Pan-Africanism means all of us are one. So that means if you like to practice petty tribalism, if you like to put the American African above the Caribbean African, if you think you better because you from America and somebody else is from Australia, that's not Pan-Africanism. You think you better because you light skinned and somebody dark, that's not Pan-Africanism. You think you better because you belong to this religion and they belong to that religion, or your hair is straight and their hair is curly. Any tribalism in your blood prevents you from being a Pan-Africanist. That's a hypocrite. When I go to Africa, the first thing I tell my brothers and sisters, when I'm in Nigeria, I say, listen, I know we got issues here. There was a civil war between the Igbo and the Yoruba. I understand that. But when Dr. Umar is in Lagos, when Dr. Umar is in Port Harcourt, when Dr. Umar is in Enugu State, when I'm in Ogun State, we are all African people here. I don't care which family you come from. When I'm in the Caribbean islands and I get the petty conflicts in there, I don't care if you Bahamas or Bermuda, while I'm here, we African. I don't care if you Jamaican or Haitian, while I'm here, we African. I don't care if you Dominican, Cuban, or Puerto Rican, while I'm here, we are African. And guess what? There was no benefit to slavery, but I will tell you this. Given that we are the diasporan African, which means we're mixed with the blood of every African nation on the continent, when we go back to Africa, we are the peacekeepers. See, when I sit at the table in Africa, they don't have to worry about whether I'm going to take the side of the Wolof or the side of the Mandingo. When I'm in the Caribbean islands, they don't have to worry about, is he going to side with the Puerto Ricans or the Dominicans? I'm mixed with everything, and as a result of that, I am impartial. They can trust me to facilitate that session. There's a benefit to being Pan-African. So number one, we identify as African. And let me say this, we are not racist. I want white people to get all the blessings God has in store for them. I want red people to get all the blessings God got in store for them. I want yellow people to get all the blessings God got in store for them. I want non-African brown people to get all the blessings God has in store for them. We are not interested in oppressing nobody, but we claim the continent of Africa for ourselves. And nobody in Africa who is not an African can be called so. If you are in Africa and you are not an African, you are either an invader, a colonizer, or the descendant of one. No Chinese can call himself African. No Arab can call himself African. No East Indian can call himself African. Why? Because Africa is the land of black African people. I can't go to China and call myself Chinese. So why can he come in Africa and call himself an African? I can't go to East India and call myself an Indian. So why can they come to Africa and call themselves Africans? And let us be clear. The only reason why the other human races want to come into Africa and claim that they're African too is so they receive no opposition as they go about the continent pillaging resources and stealing the mineral wealth of Mother Africa. Let us be very clear about that. I've been to China. China is very racist against African people. Very racist against African people. But yet they'll come into Africa and say, I'm an African. No, you're not. You are an opportunist. You have to learn how to think deeply and politically, because to be a Pan-Africanist, you have to be what? A statesman, a stateswoman for the African race. Yes, you should be involved in the politics of New York if you're a New Yorker. Yes, you should be involved in the politics of Texas if you are a Texan. Yes, you should be involved in the politics of California if you're a Californian. Yes, you should be involved in the politics of Puerto Rico if you're a Puerto Rican. Yes, you should be involved in the politics of Haiti if you're a Haitian. But on top of your national loyalty must be your racial consciousness.